In this video today, we're going to go through 3 essential tips that are going to help you with your back pain rehab work to make sure it is as effective as possible and you don't fall off the wagon when you're doing it. And before we get into it, if you find this video helpful, do give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more videos just like this. Now, one thing we want to address in this video, because it'll make sense in the context of the tips that we talk about later, is what we mean by exercises. And all too often, movements are really classed as exercises. People will say, oh, well, I'm doing my exercises every day. I'm doing my knee hugs or my knee rocks. And if you want to learn more about our opinions on those videos, there'll probably be a link up here or up here on a video specifically about those exercises. Because the reality is they're not really exercises, they're movements, they're practices. And we talk about exercises from a point of view of strengthening exercises, or you might have stretches, which are separate. And it's important to make this distinction because as we get into tip number 1, it's really going to hone in and solidify what we're doing. So if we take the example of a practice or a movement, something like knee hugs or knee rocks, if we're doing these endlessly and that is our strategy, our back pain rehab program, then the tips that we're going to talk about in this video aren't really going to work because that approach doesn't work long term. So for the purposes of this video, we're going to make the assumption that you're doing the right sort of exercises, you're doing strengthening based exercises. And with that out of the way, let's get into number 1 so this all makes sense. The first and most important thing is that your exercises, your strengthening exercises, the program itself of exercise that you're having to do on a daily basis actually makes sense to you. You can say why you're doing this particular exercise, what it is doing. You don't need to have practitioner level understanding, but you need to have a basic understanding of why this is relevant to you and what that exercise is supposed to be doing and over what sort of time frame. The reason this is important is because when it comes to back pain, you'll probably know this already, it is all too up and down. We can't put you in a test tube, life has to happen. You've got the kids to worry about, you've got the gardening you've got to do, you've got to travel to and from work, you have to get up off the toilet seat. And some of these actions, if not most of these actions, will inevitably put challenges on you partway through the recovery process before you're ready to do them effectively and safely. And chances are a lot of those movements that I've just mentioned are being done in ways that are suboptimal. And part of your strengthening process, part of your rehab process will help you make those activities that are unavoidable in most cases safer and more effective for the long term and address some of those contributing factors that have maybe led to your back pain or prevented you from recovering effectively. The reason this is important, the understanding of the knowledge is important, is because it helps you stay motivated when you're going up and down, when you're having good days and bad days. If you know why you're doing something and what the plan is, you're a bit more motivated to say, well, actually, I know this isn't supposed to make a change in 1 day, 2 days, or a week, that it's going to take a little bit longer, and I'm doing it every day because I need to strengthen up this part of my body because it provides protection for my lower lumbar disc injury, for example, or my degenerative change at L4-5, or my sciatica that's coming from my lower back. It's that purpose that's there in the background. So with a program, with back pain exercises in general, you will most likely have a couple of different exercises that you're doing. And some of those may well be easy and they're keeping the ball rolling, keeping things ticking over with that particular muscle group or that particular movement. But other areas will be more difficult. And all too often, people feel like they need to shy away. Oh, that one's difficult, that one hurts. Maybe we're not doing it right. And this really is the crux of number 2. Certain areas of your body, certain movement patterns, certain habits, certain techniques are not quite right. And what you'll find is in a good rehab program, you'll be hit with a barrier at some point. Oh, I can't quite do that movement properly because something's not going right and I'm not stabilizing my spine, for example. So I need to lean into that exercise. I need to take a step back. I need to reevaluate. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? Look at the videos. Am I doing it the way I'm supposed to be doing it? Look at the training points. Am I keeping my core engaged when I'm doing that movement? Have I got other little strategies to break down that movement or that exercise to make it easier so I can establish, well, I can only do 3 good reps of this exercise before I start to lose it? Well, that's a very good sign because this exercise, let's say it's a dead bug, for example, this exercise puts a reasonable amount of focus on that ability to stabilize the lumbar spine from moving inappropriately in a relatively safe position. You're off weight bearing, we haven't got the load of gravity, we're not moving around. So it's a very, very safe way of doing this exercise. But if we can only do 3 of these exercises before our core and our competence loses control of our spine, it really is highlighting that maybe we've got a weakness there that's been building for quite some time. Now, knowing that that area is not working as well as it should be, and that it fails after 3 reps, we don't want to shy away from that, because if we shy away from that, how on earth are we ever going to safely build it? That's the safest possible way we can build protection for that particular movement. So we need to lean into that. And that's where the challenging component comes in. Your program should have facets that cause challenge, that are pushing your body a little bit in a sensible and safe way. And that's where, again, going back to point number one, we have the faith and the understanding in what we're embarking upon in our back pain rehab process. And that brings us to point number three, having that honest reflection in the knowledge that strengthening work actually takes time. And going back to the sort of the monologue at the start of this video, most people get given movement-based exercises or just movements to do on a daily basis. And this is one of the big problems with back pain rehab in general. It's often not focused around strengthening. Most of us are not as active as we should be. We really aren't. And it's the loss of muscle components and muscle strength and muscle and movement patterns with muscular strength in play that we're missing. And understanding that the building of that is going to take some time. Understand that if we've had back pain come on more recently and we've got some of these weaknesses in tow, we probably haven't had that appropriate level of strength and competence for quite some time prior to us even having the back pain injury in the first place. Recognizing that strengthening does take time. That initial process of you learning the technique, we used the example of 3 reps of a dead bug earlier. Once you master that technique, you'll find that you can very quickly move up the rep ranges, maybe up towards 10 reps. And then later on, you're going to hit a bit of a wall where your technique improvements have been sufficient, but your strengthening, your muscle strength is actually not there. And now you're able to safely start to challenge that muscle strength, and slowly over time, those muscles will adapt and change. But that is a process whereby your muscle tissue has to actually adapt and evolve. And there's no two ways about it. That is going to take some time. But this is again why these 3 points are so vital, because if you understand point number 3, that it takes time, and you understand the purpose of this exercises or these exercises or this routine or program, then you're going to understand that it is the right thing for you. It makes sense. You can explain it and communicate it to not only yourself, but other people. And also that it does take time for those tissues to heal, and that it's going to be challenging, as we mentioned in point number 2, and that it should be challenging, because if it's not challenging, there's not the necessary stimulation to make those tissues respond and change in kind. So when you're going through your back pain exercises, your strengthening exercises, don't be put off. You're going to get that initial technique improvement. You're going to learn the technique. You're going to find that there are a few areas that you struggle at, a few exercises or parts of exercises that are difficult. There'll be strategies to help you deal with that, strategies to help tweak these exercises to make them a little bit easier so you can ease yourselves into them. And we talk about that in other videos as well. And then as you get that technique under wraps, you're going to need to push on. You're going to need to start to challenge those muscles. And then there'll be a point at which you need to graduate to the next level. You need to start doing some more demanding exercises. Maybe you take your body from being off weight bearing, lying down exercises of some description, and we start putting you upright and have a look at how gravity impacts these challenges and different movements that are maybe more applicable to daily life, and start to integrate those things into your daily life. But understanding that there is a pathway, there is a plan of action, and you understand what the objectives are with that particular plan of action, and that it is going to challenge you along the way. You are going to find some of these exercises difficult, and you should lean into that. You should pay attention to that very closely. That exercise is difficult, and reflect on that. And then finally, that it is going to take some time to stimulate those muscles and those tissues, and also ingrain in that particular movement pattern. If we take the example of when we're a young child, we see a child learning to walk, they fall over once. We say, oh, you've just fallen over. Maybe walking isn't for you. Maybe you should stop that and you should just stay crawling in perpetuity. We don't say that. We know that there are going to be challenges as we're learning new things or relearning old things from the distant past. And that is something that you need to push on with diligently, carefully, but push on with nonetheless. So I do hope you found this video helpful. Think about those 3 tips, because they're principled tips. That's what we like to give you guys, so you can apply them to anything. As long as you've got the right sort of program, you can apply those principles and it'll keep your motivation up and keep your success high. And that is what we want for you. Remember, if you found this video helpful, do consider giving us a thumbs up, consider subscribing to the channel. And if you know someone else who's struggling a little bit, back pain can be difficult. It can be difficult to manage internally, because quite often other people can't see necessarily that you're in pain and that you're struggling. So share this video with them. Hopefully it'll give them a little bit of insight and a little bit of impetus to push on, even when that rehab program is a little bit difficult. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in another video. If you want to learn more about the premium Back in Shape membership, there's going to be a video somewhere underneath here. And if you want to stay up to date or tune into some of our more recent live streams and the Q&As at the end of those, then that's going to be down here. And remember, you can subscribe to the channel up here and hit the notification bell to make sure you know when we next go live, so you can join us for our next live stream and Q&A.